Hi, my name is Dr. Deborah and I am a GP registrar. I'm also a medical aesthetician. That means doing Botox and fillers. I am also an international medical graduate, which means that I studied medicine abroad. And I've come back to the UK, or I came back to the UK in 2020, and I have been working in the NHS ever since. So my transition back to the UK was actually quite smooth. Initially, I started off locuming just to get some experience to see what level I wanted to enter the NHS as. So I wasn't sure whether or not I wanted to enter as an F1 or as an F2, so I locumed as an F2. And I felt quite comfortable, so then I continued to locum as an F2 for about a month. And then from there, I applied for a trust grade job. And I got a rotational trust grade job, which was really good in my local area. And I worked as an F2 trust grade for about a year. And in that time period, I got my competency signed off. So as you know, if you're an international medical graduate, you have to get your competency signed off. And this is different to the UK foundation program. Well, it's equivalent. And typically you can get this signed off by a consultant if you've known them for about 3 months. So it's similar competencies to the UK foundation program. And so within that year, I got that signed off. And then from there, I was able to apply to specialty training. So how did I start working as a doctor in the NHS? So the first thing you need to do is to apply for GMC registration. So the requirements to become a doctor in the UK has now changed since I graduated. And so now you have to participate or take part in the UK MLA exam. And that is the case for any graduate from the UK, or even if you're an international medical graduate. So that is taking place, or that's going into place from, I think, next year. But if you're planning to come to the UK to become a doctor this year, and if you have enough time, then there are a number of ways that you can enter and register with the GMC. And that would be to do the PLAB exam. So the PLAB has 2 parts, PLAB 1 and PLAB 2. PLAB 1 you can do in any other country, but PLAB 2 has to be taken in the UK. And then you can also do a postgraduate exam, and that has to be at the master's level. So you can do a master's in obs and gynae, master's in pediatrics, any master's, you can use that to then apply to the GMC and get a full registration to work in the UK. I feel like for me, I'm not really an IMG. I think it's a little bit of a cheat because I was born and raised in the UK. But I did study abroad, and I studied abroad for 6 years. But I think I didn't experience, or I haven't experienced the same struggles as a real IMG. So someone who has lived and studied abroad and then come to work in the UK. The transition is a little bit difficult because in the NHS we use a lot of abbreviations which you are not exposed to when you study abroad. So you might find it a little bit difficult to understand the lingo, but you do pick it up very, very quickly. I think one of the things that people typically struggle with when they come back from abroad is just communication, being able to have a good bedside manner. And the reason why I say this is obviously you've studied in another country which has a totally different culture to the one that you're working in the UK. And sometimes the transition might be a little bit difficult. But there are things in place, and there are like communication skills in place to kind of help bridge that gap. So my advice and tips for anyone who's an international medical graduate and looking to come to study in the UK, or to work in the UK, shall I say, I would definitely say take your time. There's no rush. Make sure that you study and prepare for all the exams, and make sure that you are fully aware of all the requirements needed to register with the GMC. And I wish you all the best. Thank you.